Greetings everyone, Leon Francis 60 here. I have a surprise treat for you guys. I'm doing a Game of Thrones what if scenario video. What if we're seeing what we're seeing right now from Dany's perspective for the last two episodes we have from 5 and 4 and the upcoming 6. It's just basically a vision. A vision that she's experiencing. A warning vision from Bran. So, let's dive into this video because this is my third attempt to do this video. Well, first of all, I'm going to put some guidelines in this. Rules. Kind of like, it'll probably help me out. First, right now, where we see how she sees her downfall in here. Her eventual death, either Jon or probably Arya, but I would say it will be probably Jon if they survive. We will see what's happening to to her. We see this eventually happen, like you see her fall from after losing Missandei and his other dragon Rhaegal. We see her turn and her paranoia kicking in a lot because betrayal is the word of the day. Because it's Game of Thrones. We see everything. She sees this. She sees what's happening, and she sees her eventual death, and the people, not just her enemies, her friends, and eventually his lover, Jon Snow. She sees what's gonna happen. She sees the future repercussion to what she did, what she's about to do when she torched those civilians in King's Landing, when she went bad shit crazy, and her eventual death. Okay, that's one of the guidelines. Like, that's one of the rules. Okay, we're probably gonna. I know this video is gonna be debunked because Bran seeing the future. Yeah, we see that in season 4. He can have small glimpses in the future, but he has no control over it. But what if Bran actually mastered this? Bran saw this, and he was horrified. Was pretty much what's happening. You see his cousin and his brother, Jon Snow, fall as well, because that one information about his heritage, that screwed that's pretty much kind of screwed that sealed the nail to the coffin, like you say. That pretty much sealed the deal. That one information from Sam and Bran, and telling that information to Jon, and Jon, he's pretty much an honored guy. He eventually told the truth with Dany, and we saw this in the previous episode. That was the crack in the on their issue. If Jon actually hid that information, they're probably gonna wind up getting released anyway. But yeah, it pretty much sealed their fate. But what if everything? What if he saw this? She saw this. She saw her death, She saw her friend Grey Worm turning into a monster, turning pretty much has nothing to live for except he's just lived for the slaughter, and that's all she got. All that work she did in the past few years was turned to naught, and pretty much because right now we see Danny. She's very much in a dark place, all alone in the world. She's pretty much turning on everyone. Everyone who would support her is pretty much disgusted by her now. John is pretty much disgusted in this because what happened to the King's Landing. But she sees this. She sees her death. She sees one of her final children, Drogon. Because if you kill Drogon, that's pretty much it. The army, the Unsullied, they may be tough, or the Dothraki. The Dothraki, once he sees the dragon is dead, they're probably just gonna. They'll see, why are we supporting this? Let's get the hell out of here. Or they're eventually gonna fight among themselves, form their own war bands, and they'll probably just terrorize the countryside. More on that one later. Okay, she sees her death, and she sees the rise of Jon Snow's becoming a king because they pretty much gave him the throne. Jon is not ready to be a king. He never wants to be a king. He's more kind of a uniter. He doesn't require force, but in the Game of Thrones, the politics in Westeros, that's eventually gonna get taken away. That's gonna erode, and it's gonna get corrupted. His honor, he can easily just walk away, said, "I don't want to do this," and just head north. But no, after what Dany did, he blamed himself for unleashing this horror into the world. So it is his duty to become king and try to fix everything he can to do. Dany sees this along with Bran, and they got to see the first few months fixing it, negotiating to the outer houses like Sansa and all that stuff, and the Dorne and all the other faction. Many of the you see Westeros in this thing is pretty much it's a wreck. It's basically a wreck. The North just survived an invasion from the Night King. The Lannister faction is pretty much decimated. Their armies are decimated. Some are turning into freaking mercenaries. Some are just turning into bandits. Many of the major houses are pretty much gone, except for Dorne. It's the only faction that's away from the conflict was so. The first few months, he tried negotiating, but each had their own. Whoever survived, each had their own agenda. He's tried to unite them, but they won't do it. They were just freaking. They're just squabbling and politicking. It's the same old shit, different ruler. Basically, eventually we get to see the Iron Bank wants their money back, and freaking the Golden Company, they want payback for what Dany did to them, and they want revenge, and they're gonna do it even without the support of fucking the Iron Bank. They want revenge, whoever's got left. So more on that later. She sees the politics, and it goes so weird, and it starts having another point of civil war going on, secessions and all that stuff. Then it's hit to another 5 years after that, and we see the first invasion from Essos because they saw opportunity on Westeros. We can go over there. They're pretty much divided. So eventually, Jon has to unite these people and unite whatever factions, and they They form an alliance. They defeat this invasion, and another invasion comes after another 5 years. This time is another invasion from Essos again. Defeat that one too, but it's every time there's another invasion, war, civil war, war, civil war. It's eventually it what it's basically a never-ending war, and he's getting by this time he's pretty much worn out. He's getting tired. He couldn't. His honor is basically warped now. He has to keep going. He doesn't know where to go, and and like a king, they need to have a heir, but he refused to have an heir in this event because Dan he's still stricken what happened to Danny. He blames his sister for breaking the promise. He told him not to blot out his heritage, but she did. She blames his father and mother for bringing him to the world. He blames Ned Stark for giving this blasted honor that he's cursed upon him. He sees his honor as cursed now, and Danny sees this, and she's starting to see what's the toll taking on him, and she also sees that the grief is the only thing that's holding it. That's the only thing that's his memory, a piece of her hair, or yeah, let's just do a locket of his hair and just holding it every time. And they try. Some of his advisors had suggested that he needs to get married, but he refused. He won't do it again. He has been only have two loves in his life, all ended in tragedy. Um, we see this with Ygritte and now freaking Danny. So war keeps going on, invasion. The Golden Company was the worst that came in, and with the support of the Iron Bank, they want their money back. And then when they invaded, it was the far worst invasion they could ever um, come true. Not just only the ones, not just the invaded Westeros, but they also form an alliance from the north. Yep, Queen fucking Sansa declared herself, and she said, "I want the throne for myself." Great. Yeah, eventually Sansa wants power too. Over the years, she see Jon is starting to get weak, and actually, she sees the opportunity because she blamed pretty much Jon pretty much blames Sansa for everything. Yeah, and that eventually created some hate. That loadings eventually started to get hatred to it. So a civil war was born. We don't know what happened to Aya in here. She pretty much disappeared because I think in this scenario, Jon pretty much just drove her away. He pretty much drove everyone close to him. Only he has himself, and he has advisors keep coming and going. He sees rebellions popping up, so he's pretty much alone in the Iron Throne. He's basically, the people will name him the Hateful King, Westeros. Oh boy, and you know what they say: Targaryen alone in the world is a dangerous thing, and this is what's happening. This is what happens on Jon Snow. She sees this going on with Bran. Eventually, a massive civil war between the Sansa's faction and the support with the Golden Company and freaking Jon Snow, and they both perish in the battle. Westeros was freaking much a wasteland after that. After 30 years of conflict and more bloodsheds, it pretty much goes crazy. And even after repercussions, we still see the Yansali still um around pretty much after the after the war. Most of the Ansali went crazy and they eventually turned into a war band under Grey Worm and all that stuff because he too almost suffered a lot with without Masande. The person that he only cared about is now gone, and Grey Worm's fall was already sealed. He became a freaking crazy warlord. He only lived for the slaughter, and we see the Dothraki in this uh, was also on the loose in Westeros, just pretty much coming, pretty much raiding the countryside. Some of them will fight, become mercenaries. Some of them became freaking just pretty much a death cult company. They just basically they just live with a slaughter without guidance from their Khaleesi. They end up just becoming a problem. So by the end of the conflicts and all that stuff, Westeros was pretty much a barren wasteland. They see this, and eventually the country stabilized, but it's not an easy piece. And we see this jumping into the modern era, to the Renaissance. Danny and Danny and um, Bran sees this. He takes him to those modern era, and there's like ethnic tensions going on, freaking Holocaust, and she sees this, and because the hatred that's been going on for centuries is finally that one event eventually pretty much triggered it. The one event that Dany, she's actually the future generation calls her not just the Mad Queen, but she's also the Mad Plague God. She's basically, some of them actually worship her as the god of death, essentially. They curse her name a lot. So she sees this, and the future is so bleak, and the world that she wants to build is never happened. And this was enough to convince Dany that this is not the path that she's going is not the right one. But after that, she eventually agrees that she's not gonna do this. And eventually she came back to reality again. And we see this while she was riding the dragons um to Dragonstone. She saw the experience, and she saw everything. So what she did was went before her. She went back to her fleet and eventually said there's gonna be an attack, and managed to warn the fleet. Got rid of he made sure the non-essential personnel are safe, and pretty much the ambush that Euron was planning to assault, she turned the table on them. A naval engagement happened. Pretty much, Dany just dived the freaking um, Iron Fleet, and along with Rogal, both survived. Or he had less casualties, and they managed to driven off Euron in the process. And he went back crawling to to the Iron Throne, and Cersei was pissed. But she after the battle, she had to deal with the situation with the information getting spread by Sansa. But this time she has more of a calmer demeanor. It's like she has more say. They eventually get Jon, Varys, and and Tyrion said, "We need to create this better world right now. We need to end this war with less bloodshed as we can." This will tell Varys that, okay, I want to give this person another chance, and eventually they will name Jon Snow as the king of Westeros because he might be the rightful ruler, but he needs support. He will need just not just Tyrion and Varys and all that stuff, but also um Dany in the way. So we will probably see the birth of the they will see the birth of the new basically a Republic of Westeros. The same thing that what happens here transpire will eventually it will happen similar to the what we see in episode 5. But this time with some different outcome. They destroy the Iron Fleet, but this time reinforcements from Pike came in with Yara's fleet, and along with Danny's fleet, they pretty much blockaded everything, and they pretty much destroyed the Euron's fleet. Tried to break out, but they were pretty much intercepted um, by Yara, and Yara ended up killing that Euron in the process. The Scorpion ballistas were taken out easily, like in the last episode. And this time they breached the wall. They even convinced the Golden Company, said, "You can break this contract, we will let you go. A Targaryen in the throne is coming." So they're pretty much they override that contract and pretty much ditch what's her name Cersei in the process. They also before the battle they captured they Danny's force was able to intercept Jamie, and he convinced both John and Danny and the rest try to convince had convinced Jamie that she needs to convince Cersei to stop the fighting as soon as possible. Yeah, they pretty much they attacked us after the battle. They pretty much after that engagement they had before the slaughter, the bells are ringing. They eventually surrendered. They accepted the surrender, and they pretty much surrounded the Red Keep. It spent like for one more night. Of, well, Cersei has her supporters pretty much surrounded, and she still Cersei still refused. So they sent in Jamie to convince her that it's up, it's over, and pretty much say she will pardon them. She will pardon Cersei for her crimes. Eventually, so she can live. So she can live, and she can also atone for her sins. She can live for his new child on the way with Jamie, but under watch though. So just in case she has any idea. So she can live quietly. Some of the like Sansa or Arya, they probably want to have her head, but they said no. We still see the Clegane Bowl happen with different outcome, but both sides eventually both die during the battle, and we we still have that touching send off with Sandor and Arya. We're a little bit different though, but with less casualties and anything, they pretty much secure the Iron Throne, and it would have been within weeks after the battle. They gather all the lords and nobles and all that from Westeros, and they said, and this one scene, there's like there one area they make sure they make sure that this will be the birth of the new basically a Republic of Westeros, and Jon Snow's first elected leader, and he asked Gendry. He said, let me borrow your warhammer. He gets that warhammer and just smash that iron seat and iron throne. And one strike, that sword just smashed all over the stone, the throne, and it's like that's in the past. We don't need that anymore. It's time for a birth of a new um, era of peace and prosperity for the Westerosi Republic. I'm sure Sansa will probably brood in the end, but she will agree. She will become the few member. She'll be a member signatory for this new constitution, and Tyrion will probably not a hand of the king, but one of the advisors. They might do a lot of like they might do like a they'll make a transitional period till they get everything set up, like a voting and all that stuff. Typical democracy stuff. They might have a senate. There, I can also. I wanted to do it in depth if they. What if um, Westeros? What if Westeros become a republic? I want to do a in-depth scenario on that one too, but I think that's what it is. But eventually, peace in the land. That's what happened, and we'll see this people like an epilogue. What happens to Sansa? What happened to Tyrion? If any of them, because in this scenario, some of them survived, and we'll see what happens. Cersei and Jaime and Brienne's probably still weeping, and what do you call that? Winterfell. Still probably crying for Jaime, but we'll see Podrick being a player. I can see him that, but we'll eventually Jon and Daenerys will also they probably might get married. People might object to it, but eventually they'll just like after they set up everything, both of the two of them will leave. When we see Missandei and Grey Worm leave together to the ILC, and we see Sansa probably doing special missions for not Sansa, Arya probably doing some special missions for Dany and Jon, and see Tyrion and Davos leading as an advisor, and eventually they'll create that Westeros Republic of Westeros together, and an elected leader comes in and transitional. Eventually both Dany will just and probably Jon will just disappear one night. Said, "I think our job is done here," and they flew off somewhere, probably the north or anywhere, and people will figure out what happened to them. And the Dothraki, they probably don't know what happened. Don't know what's gonna happen in this ultimate timeline. The Dothraki is just gonna probably civilize themselves. They'll learn the ways of Westeros, and yeah, like they'll probably wondering what happened to. Well, it'll be like probably they just vanished. Both Dany and Jon just disappeared from nowhere. Just disappeared. Probably went west, or yeah. I think that's my end of my fan theory of mine. This is just a fan theory, so I know this is gonna be debunked. So please leave a comment what you think. I know I tend to stutter a lot sometimes, but please leave a comment, a like on it, and hit the notification and bell and subscribe. And also, I'm gonna try to make another video, but this time it's more kind of a what if, why we need why we should have 10 episodes this season of Game of Thrones. I want to tell more in detail because it's gonna be, because I know you and I has everybody thinks this season has flaws. It's just felt rushed for everyone. I'll tell more details. I'm gonna wait till this last episode is getting released, so stay tuned with that one. I'll probably bring it like 2 weeks after it. I need to give it time. So just give me a comment, and I wanna I wanna see your opinion on this one too, and because I really crave those comments because I don't receive a lot of comments these days when I release videos, and I don't have a lot of views, and I don't use ad revenues like most YouTubers. I actually work on a real job too, so I'm just doing this for fun. So this is Darion Francis 60 here. I'm gonna sign off here, and you guys have a good evening.